Okay, so three speeches, let me just repeat for the sake of the recording, right? These three speeches all have a common problem or issue. There's something deeply wrong at the core of each one of these three speeches, right? And we're going to talk about that. So I want you to listen. I'm going to talk about the the wisdom that we can gather from these three speeches, and then we're going to go into the problems, and this will lead us into diotima. Before I start, I just wanted to highlight a few of you, your comments in the reading assignment that I thought was really good. Gonzalez, you mentioned, I like the way you put it, you mentioned diotima's mysteries, right? And I really like that, because today, as we get into diotima, we know, right, that there's going to be a shift in the way that everything goes, right? In the three speeches, we have classical Greek thinking on love, on gender, right, and gender roles and so forth, right? And we have a kind of sexism there too, right, that a lot of you noticed, right? Mustafa was really pissed, I think, throughout her reading. She didn't like it. Likewise, Gallagher noticed this, right? So the three speeches, they're classic misogynistic Greek views, right, of the text. Now, what's interesting is that Plato, right, who clearly transcends his own culture, right, includes a woman at the table, right? And Socrates, in a way, is the one who introduces her. So we know, right, with the appearance of this woman, even though she's not present in the flesh, right? She's just, Socrates talks about her. He says he learned from her. We know that when this woman enters the scene, sits at the table, we know things are going to take a different direction. Whatever has been said on love up until then will be completely flipped. We're going to see that and reversed. And we are going to go into what Gonzalez mentioned, right? The mysteries. Something deep and mysterious is at play in Diotima's words that we're going to try to explore or be initiated to. So it's going to be interesting. So notice how Plato, right? This is typical of Plato. He includes everybody. Even this foreign woman is there, right? Even the drunk Alcibiades at the end of the story. I don't know if you noticed, right? Everybody's very poised throughout the party, right? Nobody's drinking, everybody's articulate, and Alcibiades comes in and crashes the party. He's completely drunk. He gets pissed at Socrates, right? And he too has something interesting to say, right? So it's interesting how he gathers all of these views, and for him, it is the together, right? Remember, I mentioned this in my introductory lecture, right? That for Plato, truth can only be found together. It's only when we sit together in a very diverse setting that includes women, that includes foreigners, right? That includes the other, that we can really get to the truth, right? So that's one of the lessons of Platonic philosophy, is that you cannot get to truth alone. You cannot get to wisdom alone. You have to be able to listen to the women in your life, or the men in your life, to the children in your life, to the elders in your life, to the minorities, the majorities, right? This ethnic group, that ethnic group, right? You need to be able to be sensitive to all of these views to really approach wisdom, right? And that's what we have here. Okay, so let's get into Pausanias. So he's the first one, and he starts out very clear view. He tells us from the start, this is on page 13, right? I'm going to go there. I'm going to page 13, right? He begins, and he talks about, is this page 13? Now I'm having trouble seeing it. Ah, yeah, sorry, page 13, right. So please turn with me to page 13. On page 13, we have two kinds of love. Can anyone tell me what they are, and who are you loving each time? Who is the object of your love?
The common love, I remember he said that was to the body and not the mind.
Yes.
And then you had the heavenly goddess, which was to men.
Okay, excellent, Williams. Now, when you're loving in a common way, who are you loving usually? Who is the object of your love, Williams? You remember? What kind of people are you loving when you're in the common, low version of love? Are you loving, like what is the gender? What is the age? Who are you loving?
You're loving women?
Yes, little boys, right? Younger boys, not little boys. We're not. It's not that decadent. We don't have pedophilia, right? We have normal gay sex. So we have, right, younger boys. Remember, right? They're not 14 years old, right? This is not pedophilia. They're older. They're in their teens, late teens, right? They're considered at the brink of adulthood. Pretty much adults. They're like corresponding to seniors in high school, right? So those are the young boys, like they say, and women. Okay, so here's my question to you. Why is it that the lower love is ascribed to the women and to the young boys? What do the women and the young boys have in common? Why is it considered that loving a young boy and loving a woman in the same way is considered low? Can anyone answer this question? What
It
do you
looks pretty.
Yes, very good, right? So you are attracted, certainly not to the mind, right? That's what they're saying is obvious. Why? Because when you love a young boy, what does he have in his mind? Nothing, right? He's just starting out. He's just a pretty face, right? Or a pretty body, right? Woman is the same at the time, right? Women didn't get education. So when you loved a woman, it was certainly not her amazing conversation, right? Because what did she have to talk about? She didn't know the classics. She didn't know history. She didn't know philosophy. What you going to talk to her about, right? So what do you love then? What's left? The body, right? So each time, both of these instances, make sure you write this down. The problem is not so much the woman or the young boy. The problem is that you're loving the body only, right? You are not attracted to their mind. You're attracted to their body only. And so in this sense, where are you when you remember the story I told you in the introduction, the allegory of the cave? Where are you when you love a woman and a young boy? Are you in the cave or outside of the cave? What do you think?
In the cage?
Okay, why? Why are you in the cave, Shia? Tell us.
Well, I feel like we are attracted by their outfit or their body, not by their thought or their ideas, something like that.
Okay, very good, right? Because remember, the cave, according to the allegory of the cave that I told you last time, the cave signifies us being stuck in the material realm, right? And most of us, to be honest, we navigate strictly on a material level. Most of what we think about is material, right? I'm hungry, I'm tired, I want to be with someone, I'm lonely, right? These are all material concerns, right? They didn't text me, they didn't call me, I got a bad grade, when am I going to buy this car? Material. Most of us are stuck in the cave on the level of the material. And Plato, of course, is encouraging to move beyond that to a higher level of existence, a higher level of thinking. And so when you love a woman and a young boy, you are still stuck in the cave because you still just loving the material part of them, their bodies, right? And so in order to start to emerge from the cave, who do you have to love? This is the higher love, right? Who do you have to start to fall in love with in order to start to come out of the cave? What do you think?
Wasn't it the ideal dimension? Something like that.
Yes, and who will bring you there? Sarkeesian, go ahead.
Sorry, maybe I misinterpreted it, but during like the introductions of the lecture, I understood it this way. Like, the Hebrew concept was really about, oh no, you just mentioned this, I just popped in. My computer has been like really weird today, sorry. The Hebrew concept is like kind of like if your own needs are fulfilled, like each individual's in the relationship's needs are fulfilled, then you're fine in the relationship, do you know what I mean? Whereas like Plato's really seems to be just like give yourself for the other person, like just consider their needs above everything else. And the idea is they reciprocate for you, and that's how you get a perfect relationship instead of just thinking about your own needs.
You flipped it. Is the Hebrews is the Greeks that are thinking love is satisfying, and the Hebrews are thinking love is actually not supposed to be satisfying. Remember the Song of Songs, right? She's constantly pining after this guy. There's no satisfaction, right? So be careful. But actually, I will come back to you, Sarkeesian, because you are actually on track to figuring out what is wrong with the three speeches. So like, hold that thought, right? Let's see. So Mustafa, no, not God, not the higher power. Well, let me ask you this: the higher love. Who do you love in the higher love? Gallagher, would you like to help us?
Oh, I was just thinking if it's not the young boys, it's the older, mature, more intelligent people who have wisdom to.
Yes, right. Remember, Pausanias, he's one of those older guys. He's doing very good marketing here, right? He's saying, yo, if you want to love higher, in the higher level, you have to love an older man like me, right? Because I have the wisdom, I have the experience. I will lift your mind up. I will elevate your thinking. And in so doing, he's arguing, I will take you out of the cave, right? So the older men, when you love an older man, when you're clearly not loving their body or their pretty face, that's all gone, right? So what are you loving? You're loving their profound mind, their experience, their wisdom. And as you're doing this, you're actually slowly making your way out of the cave because you are now thinking on a higher level. I'm thinking, oh, I love the beauty of ideas. I love the beauty of wisdom. And at that moment, you're starting to make your way out of the cave, right? So that's the story, right? So here the idea is loving a woman and a younger, don't do it because we'll pull you back in the cave. Whereas loving an older man, yes, this is recommended because this actually you are now loving on a higher level, not just on the material level, but on the spiritual, intellectual level. And that's the highest goal, right? We saw this with even Platonic thinking, right? That's the highest goal of man. Okay. Now that we've figured out what they're talking about, let's try and draw the lessons for ourselves, right? I mean, what can we, obviously we are not in the same context anymore, right? We don't think about women the same way. We don't think about the male initiation the same way. Remember, I told you that this context that we're reading is a context of male initiation, right? These younger boys are about to be initiated into the political life, and this happens through sex, right? They give what they have to offer, right, which is their beauty, and the men give them in return the wisdom, right? So this is a kind of initiation process. So we don't do things like this anymore, right? So this is very remote from our context. But what can we learn from this text for ourselves? What are some of the gems we can gather for ourselves? I'm going to write them in the chat, so I'm listening. What are you learning here for you in terms of wisdom of love?
Can I say that the person you love reflects your desire?
What do you mean by that?
Like, you said like the higher love is with an older guy because of their mind. So I guess you could say that maybe you desire someone, for you yourself, maybe you lack knowledge or whatnot. So you want to be with someone who knows more about you and who's able to educate you. Or you already have knowledge, so you just want someone who has the beauty because you already have all the knowledge there is in the world except for the beauty, so you will be attracted to someone that's younger, I guess. So it's somewhere around that line. So who you love reflects what you desire,
where you are in life, right? So you're actually saying this is still a reality, right? You still have older people falling for much younger people because they got everything except youth, and then the younger ones still. So you're talking about kind of like sugar daddies, sugar mommies, right? So yes, very nice contextualization, Williams. Gonzalez, go ahead. What can we learn?
So on page 17, I highlighted something that I thought was like the crux of Pausanias's argument. And he says that, so it's absolutely right to gratify a lover in the hope of gaining virtue. And this is the heavenly love that belongs to the heavenly goddess and is a source of great value to the city and to the individuals. I think that that's one of the things that we can glean from this writing, is that the Greeks definitely valued the pursuit of love towards a higher pursuit of a higher virtue.
Yes, I love that. Very good. Actually, I will add to your to the passage. We're going to read it together. Please, everyone, go to page 16. I'm going to emphasize what Gonzalez just said. Put your hand in the screen if you found page 16. Let me see. Okay, great. So I'm on the first paragraph, the last sentence. Actually, I'm going to start actually somewhere in the first paragraph. Fourth line, a bad man. Who is there? Are you with me? Put your hand in the screen. A bad man. Okay. So he's talking now about, right? This is still Pausanias, right? Elaborating. A bad man, he says, is a lover of the common type, who loves the body rather than the mind. Now, here's the problem with that, right? He says, this man cannot be constant because he loves something that is not constant. In other words, if you just love the body, right, your love cannot last, because the body fades, and then what happens to your love? And this is what happens in a lot of marriages, actually. If your marriage only based on the physical attraction, you're going to have a problem in 20 years into the marriage, or 10, depending when you get married, right? And so he's saying we cannot base our relationship solely on the physical. So he says this man is not constant because he loves something that is not constant. As soon as the bloom of the body fades, which is what attracted him, he flies away and is gone. Make sure you're underlining all this, right? Bringing disgrace on all he said and promised. Now, here's the line you really highlight. But the man who loves goodness of character. So if you're attracted to more than the body, to also a spiritual element in the person or intellectual elements in the person, He says about you, this man, this woman, she is constant throughout her life, right? Since she has become united with something constant. Okay, so that's the lesson, right? In other words, he's saying, and some don't just base your relationship on physical attraction. Yes, this is important, you need that, but you have to have a good foundation in the also be attracted to their mind, to their soul, to their spirit, because this will outlast, right? And therefore you have the secret to a lasting love, right? If you have fallen in love with the mind or the spirit of a person, you know you have the ingredients for lasting love. Okay, let's see. There's a few of you with questions. Oops, what did I do? Sorry, I saw Sarkeesian. So go ahead, Sarkeesian, while I try and figure out what I did.
Hi, I completely agree with that. I just like to add also, people's tastes kind of change when they grow up also. Do you know what I mean? Like things people find attractive when they're like 16, 17, 18 aren't really things they find attractive anymore at 25, 30, 35, 40. Do you know what I mean? Like you'll find that over time, right? Like either like men for women or women for men, right? Like you get kind of like used to and adapted to the idea of being with older people as you get older. Do you know what I mean?
Obviously.
So the body doesn't necessarily fade. Your taste can still adapt, but obviously you still have some people that are just only concerned about like the really young kinds for that. Yeah.
Okay, I like what you said, right? The body can still retain its attractiveness even into old age. This is something that we sometimes forget, right? As a society, we think, you hit 40, it's over, it's finished for you. You can just bury yourself somewhere, right? But no, the body can really stay attractive to very, very far, right? Into time if you take good care of it. There's a very nice proverb. I think it was Coco Chanel who said this. Everybody know Chanel? You know the perfume, right? Number 5, certainly. Everybody? Okay. So Coco Chanel, the one who, I don't know if she invented the perfume, but anyway, she was what was she, a designer? Anyway, she was a French in fashion industry. And she said this. This is very interesting. It was advice to women. She was saying, there is no credit to a woman, or to be given to a woman who is beautiful when she's young, right? However, a woman who is still beautiful when she's older, that's an amazing, right? That's an amazing, the credit goes to her, right? So something, I'm translating very badly, right? But something to the effect that a woman who is young and who is beautiful when she's young, there's no how shall I put it? No credit. There's no, can't find the word. Somebody help me, someone. Help me find the word I'm looking for. There's no, not worth, but
like there's no prize for being pretty when you're young, because you're
it's like it's not really like we don't need to praise you, this just happened to you. Right? But if you're still beautiful when you're older, then right, you deserve a prize or you deserve credit, right? So something like that. So I mean, in France, I mean, we at least, sorry to, yesterday was Bastille Day, so I'm throwing a little bit of positive light on my country, right? But we do have a sense that women who are mature are actually more sexy than women who are young, like in our culture, because more experience, right, and so forth. So this is right, depends on the perspective of the culture, right? So thank you, Sarkeesian. Was it Sarkeesian? No, I forgot who was talking. Yeah, I think it was Sarkeesian. Yeah, that was nice.
With regard to France, also it's kind of funny, like Macron marrying his like teacher. Yeah.
Yes, and the president of the country is a perfect proof of that, right? And his wife. When Trump met her, he said, "Oh, you look pretty good for your age." in his what's the word? Characteristic, delicateness and tactfulness, right? You look pretty good for your age. So yeah, in general, right, there's the idea that even if you're an older woman or an older man, right, you can still be terribly attractive, right? Even more so, perhaps, than the youth. So this depends on the society, right? Very good. 4, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just actually you explained everything, but the funny thing is I was reading an freaking article that was mentioning that in the US, I think men over 35 are more attractive to women.
True. We just need now the women to also have that privileged position, right? This is still lacking here, right? We know that older men are attractive, but older women, we haven't yet come to terms with the fact that older women can be attractive too, right? Like at least in Europe, we have more of a sense of that. So, okay, great, interesting discussion. On YouTube, everywhere now, we can all get destroyed by what we just said, all of us. Okay, let's see. Good. Anything else you want to add to the wisdom we can gather? Okay, now keep in mind, right? We're looking for the flaw, so there's a critical flaw here too. So we're gonna see. All right, let's move to Aristophanes. He's our second one, and Aristophanes starts on page 23. So we can all go there. And on page 23, he tells us a story, right? So can anyone remind us the story? It's the story of the soulmate, right? This is one of the most ancient renditions of the concept of the soulmate, which a lot of us still ascribe to, right? A lot of us are thinking there's a soulmate out there and so forth. So Aristophanes is telling us one of the most ancient stories depicting this possibility, right? So can anyone summarize the story for us briefly? No, you didn't read that far? Stop at Posanias. Oh, Gonzalez, go ahead.
I'm just gleaming over it and trying to remember what was written, but that basically people were double clones of themselves connected to their other half. So human beings had two heads, four legs, four arms, and that Zeus split them in half as a way to have human beings exist, but to be weaker and to not carry on in the barbarous manner that they had been carrying on before. And that the threat was that if we continued to be as barbarous as we had once been, that he would split us in half again.
Right, very good. So, right, human beings used to be kind of a hermaphrodite, right? Both were mixed, right? You were connected to your soulmate. And by the way, very progressive view, right? There were some soulmates that were both female, both male, male, female, right? So they really have a very wide spectrum of possible relationships, right? Possible soulmates. So you have this, and so they were too powerful. So Zeus cuts them in half to weaken them. And now, ever since this time, we are all kind of cut in half, looking for our other half, wandering through the world, looking for that soulmate, right? Ford, do you want to add something?
Aren't these, Gonzalez mentioned, you know, the four legs, four arms, and two heads. Isn't this like an actual angels, how angels are depicted in religions? Like the actual angels, you know, like...
Gods, actually, if you have also gods, the same thing, angels, yes. I know in the Hindu context, gods have several arms, right, or legs, so we have that. Angels, I haven't seen, but you might be right, actually. I think in some of the apocalyptic literature, we have beings like this who are hybrid and kind of, you know,
like the actual old religion, like the Orthodox and Catholic from the ancient, I don't know, like 1000 BC, I think they had these depictions that they were like, you know, they had four wings.
Okay, good. Interesting. So in the beginning, perhaps we were gods, right? And then the supreme God. I mean, this is actually, you see this in many stories, this notion that in the beginning we were gods and then we were weakened, right? Even in the Hebrew Bible, in the Tower of Babel, you have this notion of unity being problematic to God and separating, right? Cutting. So yes, you have this. Very nice. I like that. So good. So we have this story right now. Of course, we have to see how it's relevant to us. And of course it is, right? I mean, most of us in the class are still thinking there is possibly a soulmate out there, right? So this story hopefully will give us the key to how to find our soulmates. This is the million-dollar question. If there is indeed a soulmate out there, then I want to know what they look like. So I don't waste time with a bunch of losers, right? Until I find the actual soulmate, right? So the question we should be asking ourselves right now is that if there is indeed a soulmate, what do they look like? And our text actually is going to give us an answer, but in a very subtle, hidden way. Remember, in this class, we are detectives. Remember, philosophical texts never tell you everything. You have to look for it. You have to decipher it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read a section of the text talking about the soulmate, And I want you to listen to the common ideas. There is an idea that comes up over and over again as to what the soulmate looks like. Okay, are you ready? Put your hand in the screen if you're ready for our detective work. Okay, I'm going to read to you randomly, skipping around. Listen to the commonalities. There is one characteristic which will come up over and over again. This is the one that your soulmate looks like. Okay, so I'm
What
going to read.
page?
So I'm going to read from page, so I'm going to start on page 25 and I'm going to skip around till 27. So I just want you to listen to this common motive. Okay, so I'm starting, right? So, and I realize now that the copy I made is very badly made. For those of you who are using the scan that I put on Blackboard, I feel sorry for you. Okay, so here we are. I'm reading on the middle of page 25, talking about the soulmate, cut, right? It is not out of shamelessness that they do this, but they're bold, brave, masculine, and they welcome the same quality in others. We are always welcoming their shared natural character, right? This is what the other half is supposed to look like. Continuing, love is the name for the desire and pursuit of wholeness. Continuing, when the key here, what we should be looking for is to find a loved one who naturally fits your own character, who is naturally close to us and who restores us to our original nature. Okay, based on these few quotes, what do you think the soulmate looks like? Sarkeesian, tell us.
It feels a little bit weird because it feels like they're trying to say two things at the same time. We're trying to become whole, so the idea should be we're looking for what's missing in us that can be completed by someone else. But also they're saying you're looking for someone like us, so you're not looking for someone different. You're just looking for the same person to have more of us.
Exactly. You're looking for a reflection. That's the hermaphrodite, is a reflection of itself, right? So the soulmate, what we're learning here, and this is actually important information. I know it sounds like a big story, right? It's very important information. Soulmate looks like you. So now what does this tell us? What is the wisdom we can get from this? Basically, this is what this is teaching us. If you want to identify your soulmate, you have to become fully yourself. Once you know who you are, then you know what the soulmate looks like. That's the secret. That's the lesson. Let me write it down, right? Once you know who you are, you can now identify, right, the soulmate. The soulmate is a soulmate, right? Soulmate looks like you. Soulmate is a reflection of you. If you want to find the soulmate, find yourself. That's what I'm gleaning from this, right? Let me write this down. If you want to find the soulmate, find yourself. And as soon as you've reached your highest self of development, your highest level of development, this is when you'll find your soulmate. As long as you're unfinished, as long as you don't know who you are, as long as you have not fully developed yourself, you will stumble onto all kinds of people who are not your soulmate, right? Actually, that's what the text seems to be saying, right? And so in order to avoid stumbling around and getting, attracted to this and that without a program, without a plan, right? You're just going randomly, this is nice, this is nice too, let's have both, So here you are wandering around aimlessly without a clear vision of what your soulmate looks like. Why? Because you don't know who you are. And so the best thing you can do to attract your soulmate, this is what the text seems to be teaching us, is to develop yourself. And so if you're single right now, this is perfect time to attract your soulmate, to begin working on yourself and really reach your highest potential. Once you have reached the highest you, once you know firmly who you are, what are your values, what is your goal in life, what is your destiny, then on the path towards your destiny, you will naturally, spontaneously, easily find your soulmate. As long as you don't know where you're going here and then changing your mind, going there, you're trying this, trying that, doing random things, you're gonna waste time, says the text, right? You need to have a clear vision who you are, where you're going, and at that moment, poof, the soulmate will appear. Everybody sees what I'm saying? That's excellent advice. Are you happy? Put your hand in the screen. Okay, great. I see a question. Gonzalez, go ahead.
Professor, we had talked before when we were discussing the Song of Songs, the Hebrew concept of discretion and modesty. Is there any connection between how when less is more, how being more of your natural self and more comfortable with yourself, that you could therefore attract a mate easier?
That's the idea here, but it wasn't in the Hebrew text. Remember, in the Hebrew text, they start out, they don't know who they are. This is the difference between Greek and Hebrew thought, right? Hebrew thought is like, you don't need to know anything, just jump in and see where you go, right? And remember, I think I didn't finish the lecture last time, but hopefully you listened to the recording where I mentioned that the key to success is not necessarily emotional maturity. The key to success in this couple is the perseverance and the ability to change, right? So in the Hebrew context, you don't need to be anybody. It's the love that builds you up. It's the experience that makes you who you are, right? You become yourself in relationship in the Hebrew context, right? You need a relationship to become yourself. Actually, that's why in the Hebrew context, if you read some of the sages, the Hebrew sages, they will tell you, you cannot be, for example, if you want to become a rabbi, right? One of the teachers of one of the holy teachers, you cannot become a rabbi until you are first married. Why? Because you're not considered whole. You're not considered complete until you have been in a relationship, right? So it's the opposite in the Hebrew context. You become yourself through relationship. Here in the Greek context, they're saying first become yourself, and then you'll have a sustaining a relationship that will last. So you need to decide if you're going to be a Hebrew or a Greek, right? Both paths, I believe, can lead you to true love, right? If you know how to take them correctly. So certainly the path of the Greeks, right? Building yourself, choosing wisely, being smart about your choices, being prudent. This will take you very far, right? At the same time, the Hebrew mindset saying, just jump in and then hang in there, right? That's basically what they're saying. Jump in and hang in there, and you'll become somebody, and your relationship will grow, right? If you're able to hang in there throughout the whole chaos, right? Then in a way, both in the end can reach true love, right? But it depends on your personality, right? Some people are more Hebraic, some people are more Greek. Does that answer your question, Gonzalez?
Yeah, it does. It elaborated a lot on it. It seems that they're coming from two different angles, though.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder, like,
Yeah.
who's more accurate? Whose argument is more accurate? I mean, because in Christianity, it's also the same thing. Priests are told that they can't have physical love, that they can't have physical connection, and that because they devote themselves to the studies and the teachings of God, that they find true connection, deeper connection, spiritual connection.
I love the contrast you're making, because Christianity is heavily influenced by Greek thought, and the idea there is the higher love versus the lower love. Lower love of woman, right? Higher love of God, right? Separation from the material to become holy, right? This is not the Hebrew version. Hebrew version is you enter the material to become holy. You enter the material realm. You enter life. And as you live life, you become mature. You become spiritual. So it's radically different views, right? Radically different worldviews, which is what separates Christianity from Judaism. You're right. Because Christianity is heavily influenced by Greek thought. And Judaism is Hebraic, right? So we have, so in a way, I mean, I think, in my view, except this notion, right, of the priesthood, which you're talking about, if we're talking about relationships in the Greek or Hebrew sense, I think both have their specific wisdom, right? Depends on your personality. If you want to be smart about it, build yourself first, you know, get your career, get your job, build a house, right? And then be wise when you choose, make sure you're in love with the body, also the spirit, then you'll go very far, right? But the Hebrew take is for more those of us, remember, who are a little more reckless. Remember, this is wisdom literature. This is for the people who don't walk the line. They too can make it, right? This is the beauty of the text. They too can make it, but make sure, guys, you listen to my second lecture, right, which we were interrupted last time, right? Because the best part is the last part of that lecture, where I talk about why they succeed, how they succeed, even though they're so inexperienced and messed up, right? And we talk about the attribute of holding on, hanging in there. I developed that, right? So both paths actually, I believe, can bring you to true love. You have to decide what works for you, right? Sarkeesian, and then, sorry, Carucci, I think you had a hand up for a while too.
I think it's kind of weird too, because I kind of see the Greek way of going about it kind of rigid. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way to do it. I think like both can suit you depending on how you want to approach life. But the Greek life really seems to be that kind of thing where you're like, okay, I'll figure out for myself, right? I'll think about it. I'll think about exactly what I want, and I'll look for just that. And then afterwards, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I'm already complete. You know what I mean? Whereas the Hebrew thing is kind of like, well, you don't really know what you want yet. Even if you like think and think and think, right? You get something, you will know it as what you want, right? Just because like if you're rigid, right, you won't really be adaptable, right? Like you could find someone that could potentially be a great match for you, but if like you're like really like, oh, I already decided for myself I want this, right? You don't ever compromise or anything, then like something comes up in the relationship, you're like, oh, I'm out, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to compromise, and it's like that's not really a path to a good relationship, I think.
Right, absolutely, right. If you're going to take the Hebrew path, right, there's two qualities that you need to develop for it to work out, right? If you're going to take the path of chaos, right, these are the two qualities you need to develop. Perseverance, we talked about this in the last lecture, and like you say, Sarkeesian, adaptability, the humility to change. If you have both, you can make it through any mess, right? Even if you come in the relationship, it's pure lust, right? Initially, and you're both kids and you don't know what you're doing, you can get to a very high level of love by applying these two virtues, right? Perseverance and the humility to change, right? So very good. Yes, I agree with you that the Greek seems more rigid, but also more orderly, more safe, right? Which is why many people would choose the Greek path, right? Absolutely. Karuchi, you had your hand up earlier.
I did. But I was thinking that maybe this is a reflection that's more for my spiritual essay, but I'm really reflecting on the concept of if you want to find your soulmate, find yourself. And maybe some of you guys have witnessed this in other people or maybe in your own self, but I think sometimes when we're younger, we get into relationships and then, or we hang out with new friends or we start dating someone new, and we start to take on these changes where we're almost assuming the identity of the person that we were attracted to, right? So we start to mimic their mannerisms, the way they talk, the things that they're into. We almost try to emulate the things that we find attractive in ourselves. But I as I'm thinking about that, I kind of get the sense that, you know, we're still looking to figure out who we are. You know, what are the things that we like? What are we really interested in? And if we don't develop that in ourselves, then we run the risk of just, you know, trying on whatever fits. And I think we fail in relationships like that because, you know, one week we're running around with a group of the metalheads and the next week it's the hip hop guys. And then, you know, down the road, we're dating that nerdy girl. And then, you know, next thing it's the girl who goes to the clubs every night, you know?
Right. Very good. Right. I mean, I think the Greek view would say, don't get into a serious relationship till you're 30 or something like that, right? Till you're all finished, more or less, hopefully, right? That would be probably the best advice. Wait until you are finished, and then whatever age that is. Some people finish early, right? They can be finished at 25 or even 20, but wait until you're finished, because otherwise you just be going like you're saying, right? Very good. Gonzalez.
I think that that's a very accurate observation. I found that happened in relationships of mine as well as relationships that I've observed. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that when you're still that young and still that immature, at almost any age, if you lack experience, the thing is that you're trying to be as compatible with another person as you possibly can be. And because we all have this desire to be involved in a relationship with somebody else, you wind up not simply just taking up traits that are like the other person, but transforming yourself in a way that makes you more relatable, more lovable. I think that's universal. That happens with everybody. It's the Greek philosophers professor that said that you shouldn't even study philosophy until you're even beyond the age of 30. You have to be like 40, no? Something like that.
Yeah. It's, I think that's Maimonides. Yeah, there's a Jewish philosopher said that you gotta wait until you're like a certain age to study metaphysics. He mentioned, right? To study metaphysics, you need to be very mature. Otherwise, you're gonna go. We see this, right? A lot of people talking about metaphysics are about to blow up the world, right? Because they lack the maturity. So that's what I remember. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What I really wanted to reflect with Karuchi though was that something that a therapist once said to me is that we're always learning, we're always evolving, and we're always changing and adapting. And life is a lifelong journey where we're constantly evolving, and we're never really meeting our full virtuous self. Yes. And we should always be striving to try to achieve that.
Yes, very good. Right, you're highlighting the two paths, right? The Greeks are saying become yourself so you don't become, right, merge with the other. You're still, but the Hebrews, remember, are saying you need to learn to change, right? If you're gonna have a relationship. So it's again very radical opposed worldviews. Yet they can still, if you're consistent, right, in each worldview, you can make it, right? 4, you will conclude us on this. 4, go ahead.
So yeah, I just want to say, like, I was thinking about this thing when you mentioned, like, oh, you have to know yourself to actually find your soulmate. But then, everyone else that added and commented about it, especially Gonzalez, he mentioned how we change. So because of the society, the society doesn't really not accept, but like the society doesn't like the idea of individuality. Like, you're not really yourself. You have to dress in a way. If you do something that's not good, you're not going to be accepted. So then I was thinking, what if, for example, the other self is not into philosophy? What if the other self doesn't understand my ideas that I have, right? How do I know it's that person? And I was thinking about this writer that was writing about love. He mentioned that if you're nervous with a person, right, or like you're scared to talk or say hi, that's not the right person for you, because when you meet your soulmate, you're pretty much calm. You know what to expect because it's your soulmate. I think it's more about the feeling than we actually need to find ourselves. Like, I don't think we have to find ourselves in order to find a soulmate. I think we have like different paths of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, right, the Hebrews don't need to find themselves. They find themselves in the relationship, right, as they enter the relationship. So again, this is only one piece of the story, right? The Aristophanes giving us one possible path, not the only path, right? So yeah, and I like what you said also, that we don't have to make a mental list and a checklist of, oh, soulmate should be this, 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 and then we check it. It's how you feel in the presence of the person, even if they don't follow the checklist, even if not a single check exists. If you're feeling safe and comfortable, that's an indication. So I like that. Very nicely put. I think that's good advice. Okay, now let's go to Agathon. He's the last one. And then we're going to take a little break before we get to Diotima. Okay. Agathon, remember, who is he? He's one of the young kids, right? He's one of those teenagers that are being courted by these older guys. He's probably very wealthy. The party is taking place at his house, right? So he's a perfect, he's one of those kids that is pretty confident, right? We see this in his demeanor. And interestingly, because he's the host, he's invited to speak too. Now, if I had been Agathon, I would have said no. Because you're surrounded here by wise people and they're asking you to speak, and we know already what these guys think about the youth, right? That they're brainless, that they're just pretty faces. So Agathon kind of pretty confidently takes on his position, begins to speak, and I don't know if you noticed, makes a complete fool of himself. We're going to go in the text and look how he blunders through this and basically destroys himself before Socrates comes along and finishes him off, right? I don't know if you noticed, at the end, Socrates, asks him, comes up to him and says, oh, Agathon, that was nice. I have a few questions. Can I ask them to you? And Agathon, sure, is completely unaware of what's about to happen, the carnage. And Socrates, I don't know if you follow the dialogue, he asks him a few questions, and as he's asking him the questions, Agathon realizing he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's not able to really be coherent. And Socrates, in a way, unveils through the questioning the complete ignorance of Agathon on the topic. This is the Socratic method, right? I think I mentioned this, I hope I mentioned this in the introductory video, that Socrates never taught anything. He just made you realize how stupid you were, and then you could go and learn. Right? So that was his method, right? Make you feel stupid so that you realize, okay, I need to study this more deeply, and then just let you go, right? So Socrates was kind of just a kind of a disturbing agent, right? And this is, yes, Williams, this is exactly what he does to Agathon. At the end of the speech, Agathon is like, you know what, whatever. That's basically what I'm reading here. It's like, let's just say that things are as you want or as you say, right? So he is in a way kind of pissed at the end of that dialogue with Socrates because he's been revealed as completely ignorant. So let's read a little bit what he has to say. So I'm on page 29, I think. Let me see. Ah, yes, page 29. Everybody with me on 29? Put your hand in this. I was going to say your face in the screen. Your hand in the screen. Okay, great. All right, so I'm starting on the top, right? So Agathon begins very confident. I claim. He's already on the wrong track because in the Greek context, you don't claim, you argue, right? You don't go around saying I think. No, you argue. There's no argument here. So I claim. Though all the gods are happy, love, is the happiest because it is the most beautiful and best. Okay, so far so good. He continues. Now here's the moments. Here's where he starts to dig his own grave. He is the most beautiful wife for this reason. He's the youngest of all gods. Okay, so already we know he's going downhill from there, right? He himself gives good evidence on this point by fleeing headlong from old age. So now he's basically being, what's the word? Can't talk today. Impolite or rude, right? Basically saying love flees from old age. Basically telling all these guys, these older guys, love is gonna flee from you. Doesn't want old age. He continues. Love naturally hates old age and keeps its distance from it. He always associates with the young and is one of them. Why? Because the young are beautiful. Now tell me what in this speech is profoundly ignorant. What does this tell you about Agathon? Is he in the cave or out of the cave, and why? What do you think? Where is Agathon?
Deep in the cave.
Why? Why do you say that, Karachi?
He's basically associating, well, the whole foundation of what he's saying is based on young beauty and that lower level love that we talked about that was in the first speech.
Exactly. It's like he didn't listen to anything that was said so far. He was just sitting there, I don't know, painting his nails. What was he doing? You know, he's listening there, right? It has just been said, right, that the higher love is the love of the older man because it's wise, and the lower love is love of the body, and you want to move away from the love of the body. And Agathon comes up and says, oh, you know, love is all about the body, it's all about youth. Basically, if you want love, this is the key, this is the punchline, love me. I am the one that you need to love. This is marketing again, right? Like Pausanias, but for himself, right? Basically saying, if you want to know love, you need to love me. To love is to be loved. That's the bottom line. Let me write this down, right? To love is to be loved. And by the way, most of us are thinking like Agathon. We get in a relationship, why? To be loved, not for anything else. And we know, of course, how not enough that is, right, for the Greek context. Okay, Sarkeesian, and then Gonzalez. Tell us.
I'd say, like, especially in the cave too, because related to the earlier thing, he's kind of chained by his own lack of experience. Do you know what I mean? Like, those are his chains. Like, I don't recall, does that ever explicitly state how young exactly he is, or just like he's really young?
It's like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, that's about those ages, like I was saying, right? Where like over time, like even right now I'm noticing, right, for example, right, like there are certain people of certain ages I'm just not attracted to anymore, even though I'm not that old yet. Do you know what I mean? But for like him, right, he's really like only just past that point where like for him, right, he's still like not experiencing that change. He's not seeing like different attraction, and this is more like the physical thing, right? But it could still be relevant too, right? He's not like realizing like his like tastes will advance towards like older women or older whatever he's into, right, as he ages, right? So because he's like in that cave, right, or like not yet being old enough, he still thinks like, oh, only young people are beautiful because I'm only attracted to young people right now.
Exactly, right, absolutely, right? Still very mature speech, very offensive speech, right, if you know the audience that he's speaking to. Gonzalez.
He's also an actor, isn't he? He was giving a play previously that was referenced by Socrates, no?
Maybe I forgot. Go ahead, continue the
So
line.
he seems kind of a little involved, a little
Yes,
narcissistic.
absolutely. He's the absolute narcissist, right? If you want to have the pathology of narcissism, he's embodying it very well, right? It's all about him. There's nobody else. There's a kind of insensitivity. He's not sensitive to the people in the room. The focus should be on him. It's a narcissist personality disorder, right? Absolutely. Carucci.
I was going to say that he is definitely living in a narcissistic perspective, because I think we see this a lot too, right? Especially now, everybody's putting their best foot forward on social media, right? This is what I look like. Here I am on the beach, and look how beautiful I look, but no one's showing what they really look like when they wake up.
Yes.
So I think that we get caught up in this, the way that we look at ourselves, we expect everyone else to look at us as well. And it goes both ways. If you are an insecure person, you could get 99 compliments and the 100th person will give you a complaint, and that's all you'll hear.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're full of yourself, you'll just continuously look in the mirror, look at your phone, just,
very good.
So I think he's kind of he'd be perfect for like Match.com or something.
Yes, we are living in the age of Agathon, right? We are all, and before we start to bash Agathon, we all have a little bit of Agathon in us, right? We're all a little bit.
I get it.
We all want the flash, the focus to be on us and people to love us, right? So we all have a little bit of Agathon, right? But again, right, there is something deeply flawed. Now, let's go to the flaw of the three. All three of them, now you know them, right? Let's conclude on this for now. What is the common denominator? In other words, what's missing in their whole exposition on love? There is something missing in all three speeches. Can anyone tell me what it is? Now, if you're familiar with the Hebrew worldview, it'll be easier for you to pinpoint there, that's missing. If you've really integrated the Song of Songs, you'll be able to see right away what's missing. Who can tell me? Let's see. See how if I have good detectives in the class. No one sees? Okay, let me break it down. Pausanias.
Can I take a quick guess?
Go ahead, Williams.
Does it have anything to do with like the love, like lust? Because I know the Song of Songs, they had a lot about lust. Like anything with that?
So yes, you do have that difference that Song of Songs is more physical, and through the physical you reach the spiritual. And so this is a kind of a distinction between Hebrew and Greek, right? In the Greek, the physical is seen as low, and you need to, right, you evolve by leaving behind the physical, right? Which is what Gonzalez mentioned is still the prevalent thought in the church, right? You have to leave. So, but I'm looking at the flaw, right? So the flaw in the Greek, not in the Hebrew. Where is the flaw? Let me break it down. Let's look at this. Pausanias, if you want to find true love, make sure you find someone who edifies you. Aristophanes, if you want to find true love, make sure you find someone who looks like you. Agathon, if you want to find true love, just make sure that person loves you. Who is the center here of the love? Who's the most important?
You and not the person.
Very good, right? Bald also says the same thing, right? You, Carucci, did you want to add?
No, I was going to say that it's a very inward reflection.
Right, very good, right? What we have in the three speeches is a focus on the self. If you want to find true love, you need to do all of this so that you can be satisfied, elevated, completed, loved. The center, the spotlight, is how the self can find the love that they need. Would be great, right? These guys could write the best self-help books out there to find the love you want, right? These people who are writing about find the love you want, find the relationship that nourishes you. This is the perfect self-help, right? For finding the love that you need, that you want, that you desire. But what is missing from these three speeches? What about the other? And I think Four mentioned this, right? What if the other doesn't look like you? What if the other doesn't reflect you? What if they're a radically different way of thinking? What if they're not philosophical like you? Or what if they don't edify you, right? What if there are moments where they actually bring you down? What if the other sometimes stops loving you and there's problems and they're in a crisis and they can't love nobody but themselves? Now what? Right? You see, when the other starts to emerge, we have a problem. Because as soon as the other stops looking like you, stops edifying you, stops loving you, it's over. Right? It's over. And so we don't have here a perspective which integrates the other. It is entirely focused on the well-being of the self. Nothing is said about the other. And that is the blind spot here, right? So let me write this in the chat. This is what unites, and then I'll get some of your hands, right? The problem with these three speeches, right? That is the love. It's all about self-edification, right? I can't write, edification, right? It's all about finding the love you want, right? Nothing is said here about the other, their needs, right? Their evolution, and so forth, right? This is all about the emphasis is on the self and on the happiness of the self, right? Now, what about when the other is not making you happy at that moment? What about when the other doesn't think like you, doesn't see things like you do, and there's conflict and there are problems, and the other sometimes stops loving you? Now what? You just get up and leave? It's over? It's not happening? It's not your soulmate all of a sudden? Right? That's the problem. You don't have here a recipe which includes the other, right? That's, in my view, the main blind spot of this philosophy. Okay, let me get a couple of you. There's Carucci, and then there is Castillo.
I think Castillo was first. Go ahead.
Castillo, go ahead.
I think it's important to note that you don't find love. I feel like love comes to you. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Castillo. Very good. Castillo, you're ready for Rumi. Rumi's gonna absolutely agree with you. We're gonna actually study a text that says exactly that, right? The Greeks, on the other hand, right, they have a plan, right? This is how you can, attract your soulmate. This is what you got to do, right? They have a whole agenda. In the Hebrews, they just jump into whatever, right? So yes, Rumi is going to go in your direction. Thank you. Nice progression into Rumi. Carucci.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that this whole the flaws are very self-centered, right? They all root in selfishness and self-centeredness, and I use selfishness because never once. You're right. It doesn't consider the other, what their needs might be, what their evolution is. But it does not touch upon, at least not what I've read, or I don't think we've discussed this. What about the love you can give?
Yes.
Right? It's all about receiving. Yes. Look for what you want, what you need, but it doesn't even talk about the completion of the two-way street of relationships, right? Like you take, but you give equally. It doesn't even center on that. So it's very, very shallow, very selfish and self-centered.
Right, very good, right? On the other hand, it's excellent advice, right? It's pretty good advice. Not bad to focus on the, spiritual attributes, to build yourself first, right? So there's still some, right? I have destroyed them, but there's still some good advice we can retain, but knowing that there is this blind spot, right? Now, Yutima is going to help us out of this mess. Now, how many of you want to take a break? How many of you want to just continue and plow through Diotima? Put your hand if you want a break. 1. Okay, all right, let's take a break. Let's take exactly, let's see, right now it's 5:22. Let's come back exactly in 3 minutes, 5:25. Okay, just 3 minutes, go to the bathroom, come back. All right, I'll see you in 3 minutes for Diotima. Okay, we're back. All right, let me see your faces, everybody.
Professor, I sent you an email. I don't know if you had a chance to read it.
I think I responded. Did you get my answer?
Obviously not.
Yeah, I think I responded. Okay, guys, I want to see your faces. Bald, for Kanai, Williams, Guerrero, Sarkeesian, Hyder. Thank you. Oh, hello, Bron. There you are. Let's see. I have something to tell you. Check on my grade book. See, a few of you arrived. Where's my grade book? Oh, my grade book is holding the computer. Okay. Hold on. Let me take care of business here with Bron. Yes, Bron. Bron, I haven't been receiving any assignments. Can you, you want to stay after class? Tell me what's going on, or you want to talk now?
I emailed you earlier. Because remember I told you I'm in Texas? Like I just came to Texas today.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Okay, we're good. We talked. Okay, good. All right. Awesome. All right, let's go back to Diotima. All right. So now with Diotima, we're going to take a sharp turn away from this perspective, right? Which is very focused on the self's comfort, the self's, happiness, right? We're going to move actually in the opposite direction, and we're going to see actually, it's very interesting how Diotima's view is going to be very similar to the Song of Songs, right? Maybe because there are two strong female characters, right? The Song of Songs, I think, I don't know if I mentioned in my introduction to the Song of Songs, but there's speculation that the Song of Songs was written by a woman, right? Because it's so, the focus is on the woman, and you have such a knowledge of the woman's psyche, right? That people wonder, right? That maybe a woman authored this piece, right? So Diotima also, there's very similar connections between the two. So, okay, so Diotima enters the room via Socrates, right? Socrates is about to, it's his turn, right, to say something about love. And he says, well, everything I learned about love, I learned from Diotima. So now, sadly, though, seems like, so I'm going to offer a slight criticism now of Socrates, right? The way that I read it, which I find most unfortunate in the way that he transmits what Diotima has to say. So he begins, and I don't know if you noticed this, but he begins by saying, by allowing Diotima to speak, and Diotima is talking about love, and she mentions two very interesting elements of love. She mentions desire and pregnancy, right? Which are really two experiences of a woman's body, right? When a woman is in love, she experiences desire, and then she perhaps becomes pregnant, right? So these are two very embodied experiences, right? These are, she begins immediately with some very powerful feminine, right? Embodied experiences, right? Desire, this is an experience of the body, right? When you feel desire, it's not in your head, you feel it in your body. And pregnancy, of course, is an embodied experience. So she starts by talking about, she starts by speaking out of her body, right? But then little by little, as Socrates continues to talk, we are leaving the body. And ultimately, the highest desire you should have, did anybody catch this, is for what? What's the end of Socrates' speech? Where do you end up? What's the highest love you can have? Let's see if anyone remembers. No one remembers. What's the highest desire? What's the, maybe you didn't read that far. It's a long text, right? Ultimately for Socrates, I'll tell you, and then please go back to the text and read this, right? Ultimately for Socrates, what matters, the highest love, is not the love of other people. It's not the desire you have for each other, right? The highest love is the love of wisdom. And so Socrates, right, allows Diotima to speak in the beginning. And she begins to speak out of her embodied experience. But little by little, I get the sense that Socrates hijacks or mansplains, right, Diotima's experience, and we end up somewhere in the stratosphere of the love of wisdom, right? At least this is my reading. This is a good example of a feminist reading of the of the text, right? So I'm being quite critical here of Socrates, even though, of course, what he says makes sense. Of course, the love of wisdom is important, but I am seeing here a kind of hijacking, right, of Diotima's original speech, which began with her embodied experience as a woman. And so what I want to do today with us is to try to salvage what Diotima might have said if she had been allowed to speak, right? So I want to go back to these two concepts, love as desire, love as pregnancy. And I want to treat them like metaphors, right? I want to go and try to dig the wisdom. What does it mean that love is like a pregnancy, for instance? What does it mean that love is shaped as a desire or has the structure of desire? What can we learn about love? And you're going to see as we explore, right, the original intent of Diotima, we're going to see very different wisdom than what has been taught so far. So let's start with love as desire. That's number one. And then we'll talk about love as pregnancy. Okay, so desire. I think Socrates actually makes a very good definition of desire. So let me do Socrates here for you. What do you desire? Something you have or something you don't have?
Something you don't have.
Very good. So desire always takes you beyond yourself. That's the idea, right? Desire is always going beyond what you have to something you don't have. It's always bringing you further than who you are, out of yourself. And I'm going to elaborate here. Out of your comfort zone, right? Out of the ordinary, right? Of what you're comfortable with. Love as desire will always draw you out of yourself. Now, let's talk a little bit about this. What does it mean that love will always take you beyond yourself? Is this good and why? Let's talk a little bit about that. How love sometimes is really an exile. It's going beyond your comfort zone. It's sometimes painful because of that. It's not comfortable. There can be a lot of conflict. You don't feel like yourself anymore. How is that, however, to a certain degree, good that you're feeling like this? A lot of us start feeling like this and we're like, it's not working. Like Diotima is saying, yes, it is. Precisely now it's working. Why is it good to sometimes feel uncomfortable, to sometimes experience conflict, to sometimes feel like you don't have anything in common, right? And you're always fighting, right? Why is this to a certain degree actually very good? Sarkeesian, tell us.
Because we only learn when it's difficult.
Okay, very good, right? The love is if you don't go beyond yourself, you don't grow, right? So often the conflict, the difficulties, the crises are forcing you to grow, challenge yourself. So very good. Let's see, who else? So I saw another hand, but I don't see it anymore. Who had their? Oh, yes. Jaeger, sorry. Jaeger, go ahead.
It's like bringing you out of that cave that you feel that uncomfortableness, and like you're experiencing things as a whole, as like other people's views.
Yes, I like the way you put it. It's a kind of cave, right?
Yeah.
Our comfort zone is a kind of cave, and if we want to go beyond the cave, we have to allow for the lover, our beloved, to challenge us, to disagree with us, to have conflict with us, to make us feel uncomfortable. This is actually a positive experience. Next time y'all are fighting with your beloved, you should sit down and be like, I'm so blessed. Right? I'm so blessed because you're really forcing me to love more deeply, to grow and become more than myself, right? Absolutely. Anybody else want to add on this trajectory, in this direction? How love necessarily should be uncomfortable, according to Diotima.
Professor?
Yes, go ahead, Gonzalo.
So I don't know if I can elaborate on that. What I'm not understanding, though, is how you mentioned that desire brings you beyond yourself. I'm not understanding that concept. I'm imagining desire as emanating from the self, as an impulse that you are attempting to fulfill, something that you want. When you want something, that's coming from as close to the self as it could possibly be. No?
Very good. There's a distinction you need to make, which is very, very profound, which is the distinction between need and desire. Need stems from the self. I'm lonely, I'm unhappy, I want to be with someone. This is these guys. I want someone to keep me company, to complete me, to right? This is need. Desire stems from the other. You see in them something that you don't have, and paf, right? So there is a distinction to be made between the two. The three speeches we studied, they talk more about, well, it's a mix, right? Agathon, it's need. Pausanias, maybe it's desire. You don't have wisdom, so you want to go towards wisdom. Aristophanes, it's ambiguous, but you can see the difference, right? Desire stems, you don't have it. It doesn't complete you. It doesn't necessarily even make you happy. We know people who fall in love like that, that clearly they're not looking for happiness, right? And yet, what do they see? The person doesn't fulfill any need. It's the desire that's happening there. They're sensing something that's bringing them beyond themselves, and they like that. They appreciate that experience. So there's some of us who love based on need. We want to be happy, fulfilled, comfortable, and that's fine. But here we're talking about a love which some of us actually love to be brought out of our comfort zone, and we choose difficult partners for that reason, right? Williams, go ahead.
Professor, can you also say that desire is kind of like a want? It's similar to want?
Want means you're lacking. So wait. It depends how you see the want. Do I want to be happy or do I want to grow? Depends, right? If you want to just be happy and comfortable, you're needy. If you want to grow, you're desiring. Does that make sense, Williams? Yeah. Karuchi, tell us.
I was thinking that this reminds me a lot of what we read in Philosophy 116 in the spring regarding Rumi, knowledge of the heart and suffering, and how that's a gift from God. And it's through those struggles that we actually learn more about ourselves and then more about love in general.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Thank you for the shameless ad for the advertisement.
Yes,
for
take Philosophy 116. Take it. It's a great course.
116 is how to suffer, guys. How to suffer gracefully, the wisdom of suffering. So if you're interested in that, please take my 116 in the fall. We'll talk more about that at the end of our semester. But yeah, absolutely, right? Some of us, when we love, we want to grow. We want to be challenged. This is the type of love Diotima is talking about. Some of us, however, want to be happy. We want to be fulfilled. We want comfort. And that's the other type of love, right? And so you see two kinds of people, and they don't understand each other. Right? Somebody who wants love for comfort, they're going to judge you when you're trying to reach for something challenging. They're going to be like, well, you're not happy. Why are you staying with this person? Right? And you'll be like, no, but I love them. You are on the trajectory of Diotima. You are loving in that way. And that kind of love is absolutely legitimate, right? In fact, for Diotima, it's the only kind of love, right? The love that's just about being happy or comfortable. You're not really yet into the actual journey of love. You're still in the parent-child dynamic, right? Parent-child dynamic is love nourishes me. This type of dynamic she's talking about, which for her is a more mature kind of love, is that love is not about being nourished, it's about being challenged, right? And that's the kind of love which is desire and not just need, right? And so she's saying, if you're that kind of person where you are fine with someone, or you are dealing with someone difficult and they don't always make you happy and there's a lot of conflict, she's saying, actually, you're right in the middle of love. Welcome to the journey, right? Embrace it. There's something very, very beautiful about that journey too, right? Even though to someone who's comfortable, you look, horrifying. This, she says, is the actual true love. Anybody else want to add something on the love as desire before we get to love as pregnancy, which gets even worse or better? We don't know. Okay, very good, right? So there is, I think Nietzsche, whom we won't study sadly, he makes this distinction. Let me write his name down. I'm sure most of you know about him. Right? He distinguishes between happiness and comfortableness. And for him to be simply comfortable and safe and everything is going well, this is not true happiness, right? For Nietzsche, true happiness entails that you have seen the highest and the lowest of life. You have been in the dumps and you have had ecstasy. And he's saying this is true happiness, is the ability to navigate life and love both the darkness and the light, the crisis and the harmony, right? The ability to embrace all of the aspects of the love journey, understanding that the love journey will take you down to your deepest depths and up to your highest ecstasies, right? I think Khalil Gibran also in his poem in the book The Prophet, right? Check it out, guys. This is a classic. Khalil Gibran, The Prophet. Please read it, memorize it, have it in your pocket all day long. In the section on love, right? He talks about this, right? The notion that love will shake you at the roots, right? And this is really what Diotima is saying, right? True love is not meant to be easy and harmonious always and comfortable. It's meant to shake you at the roots and force you to grow, right? And so that's what we're learning here with love as desire and not just as need. Okay, now going to love as pregnancy. For this, we need to demystify pregnancy a little bit. Has anybody been around someone who's pregnant or been pregnant? Put your hand in the screen so you can help me with this. Okay, so you're around a pregnant person or you're pregnant. How's it going? Tell us a little bit, the experience.
Well, I delivered my son, and I could say it was bittersweet. I guess coming from a female perspective, I guess the whole process of seeing your body change, it's something that I say it's beautiful. It's a beautiful process. Like feeling a body growing from within yourself. It's a beautiful thing, but also like the physical aspect of it, the way your body changes, the way that, my son ended up, taking nutrients from myself in order for him to develop and that kind of thing. It has its pros and it has its cons.
Excellent, right? All of a sudden, your body is not your own. All of a sudden, you lose all the freedom, the energy that you had to go out with friends and do this. And now you're like sitting around eating crackers, right? You're nauseous from day after day, right? Your life doesn't have the same color. In many ways, early stages, especially of pregnancy, feels like you're losing your whole life. Your whole life is gone. Right? And many women actually get very depressed in that first stage because of this kind of suction. Right? It is sucking the life out of you. Y'all don't know this, right? It all looks, you're glowing, right? We tell the pregnant woman, oh, how beautiful you look. She's not feeling beautiful, right? So there's a lot of giving up, right? And yet you mentioned Durand bittersweet because you receive so much more in the end, right? And so now let's stop on Durand's experience and tell me, how is love exactly like this? How is a true relationship going to look like that? Tell me a little bit. Let's elaborate on this. You lose, yet you gain. What does it look like? Is the other sucking the life out of you? And yet, tell us.
I think there was this concept that the more you give, the more you get. So the less you have, it's actually the more you have.
Very beautifully put, right? Very often, right, we hesitate to get into a committed relationship because we feel we will lose our freedom, right? We feel like we will lose something, right, from our old life. And it's true. I'm not here to tell you you're not going to lose anything. You're going to lose a lot, right? But if you enter this, you're going to gain so much more, right? And very often we miss everything we could gain because we want to protect these freedoms, right? And so what we're learning from love as a pregnancy is that losing is gaining. I think that's what Ford just said, right? Giving is receiving, or losing is gaining. But it doesn't feel like that initially, right? When you're first starting to make those sacrifices and you can't go out with the guys anymore and you can't do this and you can't do that and you're like, why did I get in this relationship? If you follow through and continue, right, to give and to offer yourself and to sacrifice, right, you are actually going to enter such a higher level of existence that you're going to get into a higher level of consciousness, into a higher level of life that you cannot enter, right? The door into this higher level is sacrifice, right? I'm exploring this concept right now. I'm very intrigued by it, and I'm actually going to teach a whole class next semester on the concept of sacrifice. So if you're into this, join me right next semester. I'll tell you more about it. But yeah, so this is the notion that very often, right, we want to stay on this level because we feel free and happy. But there is such a deeper level of existing that we often miss, never experience, because we are not able to lose. We are not able to give up. We're not able to surrender. We're not able to sacrifice, right? And so we stay in this kind of lower sphere where we could experience so much more, right? So very nicely put, for and Durand. Anybody else want to elaborate on love as a pregnancy? How does love resemble a pregnancy? Sarkeesian, go ahead.
I think I was just like waiting to see like if anyone like would mention something that I felt like or wouldn't mention something or missed on something like that. Something I think we've missed is the idea that you don't really make the baby directly. You get what I mean? So like, for example, right, like obviously, right, like if you're like pregnant with a kid and you're like drinking and smoking all the time, right? I mean, the kid's gonna come out looking weird, but like if you like eat like healthy things all the time, right? You always like get all your vitamins, all things like that, right? You're well fed, all that. Obviously, the kid will more likely than not like come back better. You know what I mean? But like just like in a relationship, do you know what I mean? Like you can scream at the person, right? And most of the time they'll scream back because I mean that's what happens, you know? You can like say nice things to them, and a lot of the time they'll say nice things back. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's gonna be all of it. You know what I mean? Like you can still like be like perfect in a relationship, right? Like completely nice, completely great. And they can still like, for example, like break your heart, cheat on you, leave you, whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you don't have full control over it. It's just like you kind of just put things into it and it's like maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. You don't really have full control of the final product. It really kind of develops on its own.
Very good, Sarkeesian. I like that. You have no control. It's true. Even in love, we have to accept this. We don't have control over the outcome, but we do have control over how we nurture the relationship. And I love the way you put it, that love is about nurturing, creating the environment for love, creating the necessary conditions of possibility of love and the way you act in the relationship. And I think this whole class is about this, right? Teaching you how to nurture the relationship in the best possible way so that even though, right, to give you the highest chances of success, but doesn't guarantee, we ultimately don't have control, but we can create the best environment possible for the relationship to heal or to grow or to become stronger. And this is really very, very important, that all we can do is create the environment. We cannot control the outcome. Very nicely put. I'm going to put it in the chat, right? So love as pregnancy is love as creating the conditions of possibility, right? Or the environment, or environment for the relationship to grow. But it doesn't guarantee the result, right? And accepting, right, that we don't have full control. That's a very nice lesson, right, from Love is Pregnancy. Good, you guys are doing so nice. I like it. Anybody else? Where's my pen? Now I lost my pen, which means I can't think anymore. Here it is. Okay. Anybody else want to comment on Love as Pregnancy? I mean, it's a very rich image, so there's a lot you can say still about that. Okay, all right, let's leave it there. I'll let you continue to imagine, right, what it could mean, but I think we've done a pretty good job at restoring Diotima's original intention, right, original discourse that Socrates kind of, you know, used as a trampoline, right, to jump to his stuff. At least that's how I see it. Good, so this is Plato for you, right? And we can see, hopefully now you can see a nice contrast between Platonic thinking and Hebrew thinking. You can see also the contrast, and this is, I think, the test question between Diotima's perspective and the three speeches, right? Diotima is actually much more centered on the other, right? The other has a very important place in Diotima's speech, and the other is meant to challenge and disturb and, you know, kind of, you know, stretch you, right? The other is not there to fulfill or so there is, whereas in the first three speeches the self is the center. Here on the contrary, the movement is going beyond the self. In the first three speeches, the movement is going towards the self. The whole story is about the self. Here it's about moving beyond the self. So versus comforting the self to challenging the self, right? This is or affirming the self, destabilizing the self, right? I think this is one of the main contrasts, right? The first ones are affirming the self, right? Or consolidating the self, right? And this Diotima speech is more about breaking the self, right? Open, destabilizing the self. The first one is more about comfort. The other one is more about discomfort, right? So we have several contrasts which you can continue to elaborate on between these two worldviews, right? These two paradigms. Okay, excellent. All right, let's talk a little bit about your test. We have about 10 minutes. I'll try to do this fast. We'll talk about your test and your essay. Okay, so you have a test due this Saturday night, right? Or anytime before I wake up on Sunday. So you have the whole night. I know I don't wake up at 6 on Sundays, so you can do what you want, but I need the test in by the time I wake up on Sunday. So for the test, you need two things to really do well. You need to have a very detailed answer, right? Based on your notes entirely, right? Which takes about 1 page, single-spaced, right? Per question, right? So you have 2 questions, so a total of 2 pages, single-spaced, right? So that's the first thing, right? Very detailed answer, which will depend, of course, on how well you have been taking notes, right? Which is why I told you at the beginning of class, make sure you are taking good notes. Everything I'm saying should be on your paper. You should be typing the whole time or writing the whole time, right? There's a lot that's being said. Second thing you need for your answer is quotes. So usually quotes that we talked about in class, right? That we did several quotes today, right? So you need to, whatever you're saying about in your answer, you need to support it with quotes from the text that we read, right? And usually I go over those quotes with you in class, so you make sure you're underlining, right? All those quotes. So this is how you answer, right? The question. I don't have the syllabus on me, but I'm pretty sure that the 2 questions, one is on the Song of Songs, right? I think is it how do we attract commitment? Does anyone have the syllabus?
How does one attract commitment according to the Song of Songs, and contrast the 3 speeches with Diotima's speech in Plato's Symposium?
Okay, very good, right? So that's in your syllabus, right? So you answer each of these questions most detailed possible based on the whole lectures we did. So make sure that you really go back. I know the Song of Songs was a little chaotic. We got interrupted last time. I put up the whole lecture from another class on our Blackboard, on our playlist, sorry. Make sure you listen to this. In class, I was so pissed when I got interrupted because I had not even scratched the surface what I wanted to say. And the most important part is the last section on grace in the Song of Songs. So you have to get to that, right? You cannot understand the Song of Songs if you don't get to that last section, which I did not get to last time, but which I put now in our playlist. You need to make sure you listen to both lectures of the Song of Songs, especially part 2, right? Where I go into grace in the Song of Songs. This is important for your test, right? So you want to listen. If you haven't listened to all the lectures, listen to all of them. I'm going to post this one now when we're done. Review and make sure you bring in all the elements of the lecture in your answer, and then the quotes. Okay. Any questions on the test? Gonzalez, go ahead.
Professor, you had mentioned using quotes from the text, from the body of the text, of course, but can we also use quotes from the lesson? Because you said that using our notes is paramount.
Yeah, you don't quote that. You just, that's not a quote, right? That's just your notes, right? So
okay.
Don't think that don't quote me. Just write down.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, the only worthy quotes are from the text, right? Now, be careful. Late tests, you get 1 point off, right? So know this if you're going to be late. It's not a big deal, but it adds up, right? So if you have a late test, you will notice, just make sure you put it in the late folder, right? Late tests and essays folder. Now, your essays. Essays is the fun part. The essay is 1.5 pages, single-spaced. And please don't give me a huge like title page or whatever that's taking up half the page, right? You start at the top of the page to write, right? Don't give me like 5 10 lines of like who you are and your class, right? Just start at the top and write 1.5 pages single space. And this needs two things. You need to have two things in that essay. A love crisis. So you need number one, a love crisis. So this can be something you're going through, right? Or someone else around you is going through. You notice it's a mess, right? You describe to me the crisis. And then I want you to be the therapist. And I want you to bring the wisdom from our texts, right? Or lectures, whatever, right? I want you to bring that wisdom to them. What can you tell them or tell yourself to help heal the relationship or restore the relationship? What can you say that would be great advice based on what we studied for the past couple weeks, right? And this you write just any way you want. You can do like a journal entry. You can do a letter to yourself, a letter to them, whatever you want to do, as long as I see a crisis and a solution or some kind or something, right, that speaks to the crisis. And you put that, of course, in the essays folder, right? So there's a tests folder and an essays folder. That's where you put it. Any questions on the essay? Castillo, go ahead.
So for the essay, it's basically just us like venting or ranting to you.
Yeah.
But it can be written as like a letter to him.
Yeah, it could be. You could do that. Whatever you want to do, right? As long as you have a crisis and advice, you can write it to someone. You can write it to yourself. You can write it to your beloved and be like, so here's what I learned, right? Here's what can help you or me or us, right? Yes, you can do that, Castillo.
By advice, do you mean like the things we've learned so far from this?
Yeah. What can you, with what you've learned now, you have the skills to fix this, right? You know now what's going wrong, perhaps. You know maybe what they need to hear to help heal or restore the relationship. Yes, based on what we learned in the past weeks, right? You bring in that knowledge. So from Plato and Song of Songs, yes.
Do we have to include quotes or no?
No, for that is very free. I don't care what you do, as long as I'm seeing a crisis and a solution. And yes, it's due the same time. Yes. Essays, you'll notice I'm a little more flexible, but the tests need to be on time. So if you're going to sacrifice something, sacrifice the essay. I mean, do it eventually, but I think the test really needs to be on time. Very important. The essay, of course, it's due the same time, but, you know, if you're going to be late, it's better to be late on the essay than the test.
So, Professor, it's due on Saturday?
Saturday night, before I wake up Sunday morning. So figure it out. You have about a couple days to do this, so you should be good. And you had the questions all along, so you could have been thinking about it already. So great. Anything else? Any other? I think I said everything. Yeah. Now, by the way, you remember our final project, right? Now that we finished the Song of Songs, you are ready to read my womanist wisdom of the Song of Songs. So if you enjoyed the text of the Song of Songs, you will enjoy this, right? So you can already start, right? Reading. I think you're ready now. You have enough background. I mean, make sure you listen to the 3 lectures I did on the Song of Songs, and then you can already begin reading that book, and you can kind of use it as a companion for the whole semester. In the book, I mentioned all of the authors that we're going to meet, right? So it's a good companion book for the class, I think. And remember, at the end, I will be asking you for a review on Amazon. So that's the goal, for you to read as much of the book as possible and then write me a review. 4, question?
Can we also get an autograph?
Of course, but you have to buy the book then. And you know what? I can't afford the book. It's crazy expensive. I don't know what they're doing. It's very sad. I mean, I did a PDF. I put a PDF on Blackboard, but it's so much nicer to have the actual book. So if you find that you like it, try to buy the real book, because it's really worth it. I mean, it's a really nice cover. I like it. Castillo. Castillo, you still have a question, or is this from before? Where's Castillo? Castillo disappeared. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're good. If some of you still, by the way, I'm always available, right? Anytime after class, if you want to talk more about life, about what we studied, I'm always available after class for conversations. So I know a few of you wrote me already about some questions you had about relationships. We can talk, right? So I'm always available after class for any more personal a conversation or a conversation about what we studied, I'm there for you, right? This is the only time you will get in your college experience to think about love. So you want to take really advantage of my availability as well as the text, right? So I'm available to you. If you ever want to talk about something you're struggling with, no problem at all, right? I enjoy talking about those things too. Good. All right. So you guys can go. If you still have questions, some of you can stay, but the rest of you can go. And good luck on your tests. And I'm going to write out the homework for next week, but I can tell you now that you need to, I'll put it in the chat, right? Make sure you listen. So you do the test, the essay, right, obviously. And then you listen to the audio for Rumi. And then you'll have to read the poems, right? And then you do the audio question, right? It's always the same thing. And then you read the poems, you do a reading assignment, and you will be ready. Rumi right now is very short. It's good because we have a test, so you don't have much work. There's not much reading for Rumi. All right, guys, bye. I will put your homework more detailed in the Blackboard.
Thank you, Professor.
Professor.